Hello, hello, hello! What's up? Let's go. Freddy's here. Yeah, my pizza is right on time for your stream. Awesome. I was also thinking to have a pizza, but then I was like, with me talking and everything, maybe not. How are you doing? Today we have a lot to cover. We're going to be doing the useContext, useReducer. I have been preparing since yesterday. I wrote down kind of like tiny script-ish in a way, and I hope this time I'm gonna stick to it and I'm gonna show you everything I know, and maybe not, as always, you know. Let me see. I set a reminder on Instagram so more people are gonna join, because I figured, hey, if I am being prepared, then might as well notify people about it, you know? You know what I mean? Okay. I'm fine and excited, yay! How was your day? Oof, my day was full of meetings, surprise, surprise, and then I actually caught myself in a feeling that, you know, when you have like a lot of meetings and it's constant, for some reason, like the last, what is it, Wednesday, the last 3 days have been quite like meeting heavy, which is not like super heavy, but they're still meetings. So I caught myself in this feeling that I need to recover after all those meetings. I feel like my social resources are running low and I cannot just like, you know, go on and start coding. It's kind of like I need a break from that. And that's something interesting. I have not noticed that before, but now I start noticing that. Plus tomorrow I need to meet my team for like a evening get together. So let's see. I think by Friday I'm gonna be done with all these things. Hey Shelton, evening. Hello, hello. Oh, Ahmed is here. Hey. Hope you're having a good, happy Wednesday. Yes, hope everybody is having that. Wednesday, Tuesday. No, nobody's having a Tuesday, right? We're all on Wednesday. Maybe Thursday somebody is having. Time for a recharge. Yeah, but how do you do that when you're during work? No, but I have been socializing a lot. In my scale, it has been a lot. So I'm kind of like wondering how to, you know, how to manage that. Hello. I totally know that feeling from being socially exhausted from meeting. I did 5 one-on-one meetings today and my head's exploding. Did a nap after that. Yeah, definitely. I hope the nap helped. I'm not sure if I would be okay after a nap. Okay, let me bring up my script and check it quickly. What's what? I'm also kind of, I have done this thing of like this useContext once by myself, sort of, in a way. And I have like a reference point to that. So let me also bring that up. And it's funny because, you know, after a while, once you have coded something and then you check the code again, you start noticing and you're just like, why did you do that? That could have been optimized. Hello, elegant coder. What's up? Okay. I think I need like a third screen for all of this. How are you? I'm fine. How are you doing? What is new? It's interesting. As soon as I resize my windows, for some reason YouTube is telling me, like, giving me new notifications. Anywho, let's Shall we jump to it? Or do we want to talk a little bit more? Give me a heads up not a heads up, a thumbs up if everything is fine. You see here, music is all right. I'm not like screaming in your ears. Otherwise I can adjust things. Ooh, I know what I need to adjust. Before I show you my screen, I need to adjust the font size. So where is it? I'm doing good. New is React 18. Yeah. Thanks for the thumbs up. Okay. So it seems like I have adjusted the things that I needed to adjust. And I don't know if you can hear my dishwasher. If you do, then just know that that's a dishwasher. All right, let's get to coding. Boom. Okay. My head is gonna hover a little bit over that part of the code, but it's a sidebar. There's nothing really else to see there, so it should be fine. So if you're not familiar with what we're building here, this is Welly. This is a e-commerce website. Let me go to the main page. So we have a header, then we have some products that we fetch from a third-party makeup API, the link to which you can find in the description box below, be like under this video. And we have some banners here and some information. It's a lot of placeholders, but you know, just like to get like the look and the feel of the design that we're going after. The design is also nothing that we have created. We took it from Behance. We found one by Piotr Medycki, and I have said this name for so many times. I really hope I'm not mispronouncing it. Then we also have an about page that we did, like a very simple, also lorem ipsum-y kind of. And we also have a single product page. So once we click on, for example, lip gloss, then we are being redirected to our URL /product/ the ID of the product. So in case you want to, I don't know, let's say you have a client or a customer who wants to share this product with somebody else, then they can just copy this URL and they're gonna see exactly the same product that you see or your client sees. Then we also have some recommendations, and once we refresh the page, the recommendations also they're randomized, so they should be different. See? So now if we go to Clinic Pop, then we have this. No description. Interesting. That's a first, but okay. Hello, Aiden. How are you? Yeah, that's the gist of what we have achieved so far. But we also have our search page, where we have achieved a little bit more than like just a static page. We have some functionality, but it's still not working as we want, I think. Does it work? I don't remember. I remember we didn't do too much here. We mainly did CSS and kind of like the structure. So we have here some product types, and those product types are hard-coded because we don't have an endpoint where we can get those products, and we are still using fully the makeup API and the information that we get from there. We're not creating our own API, okay? Just so we're clear on that. And I think if I click like on blush, then it should show me something. Yeah, cool. So it's only blushes. And then of course we're using the component of the product card. So once we go here, we see again the same. The only thing is that when we go back, we don't have this saved, which is what we're gonna solve today. We also have drop downs, brands, we also hard coded them because again, no endpoint to fetch all the brands, and there is a ton of products, so fetching them and then looping over them to get like the brand. So if we select Dior, for example, then we get things. This thing is not working as far as I know. Yeah, that one I think is just gonna endlessly loop. So we're gonna refresh it in order to be easy on our app. There we go. Okay. I wanted to show you something else. What was that? Oh, I think we have an error in the console log. So I want to quickly fix that before we continue. So we have a failed prop type. The prop price is marked as required in price, but its value is null. Sounds like my stuff. Miles or Miles? Just a moment. I see your question, but let me just fix that first. So we need to go to price, and here I'm gonna close the sidebar. So price is a string and it's marked as required, but we don't get it. Yeah, we have a default prop, so we can actually remove the required. Right? So now if we refresh, take your time. There we go. Error free. Nice. Okay, I'll keep the console here because I can tell you we're gonna be using it today a lot. So there is a question from Miles. I'm gonna say Miles, correct me if I'm wrong, and apologies. What do you think should we learn all? React concepts, hooks, React with TypeScript and everything from scratch and then master all these things? Or learn, for instance, use state, use effect, master these hooks, and then new hooks, React router, and so on. I mean, I'm not sure if I understand like the first option, but it seems that that the second option is more simple. So I think I would go with that. I mean, you still need to learn React concepts, right? And use effect and use state is... just a second. Sorry, I need to mute my phone. Because use state and use effect are React hooks. So you would still be learning them. And they are kind of part of the React concept. I wouldn't jump into React with TypeScript necessarily. I mean, if you do know TypeScript, then learn React with TypeScript. But if you know JavaScript, go with React with JavaScript. Like, don't overcomplicate it, because this way you would need to learn and React and TypeScript at once, and that can just... I would explode, for example. I would not go that way. So I would say just like take it step by step. Or if you want to elaborate, maybe I didn't get the question properly, then let me know also. I'm happy to keep on discussing that. Alright, so we fixed the price thingy. Thank you. Awesome. Best of luck. Cool. Let me close the things and we're gonna start having some fun. Let me put up the script to see what I have in place for today. Okay, so we're gonna be having, I called it a Context API stream, which is not only Context API, it's also useReducer stream. and it's a use context, right? So context API is like the API that React gives us, but we can also use the use context hook that React also gives us in order to kind of like work with the context API through the hook, you know? If that's confusing, just flow with it, okay? Keep on asking questions in the chat. I'll answer as much as I can, as much as I know. If I don't know something, we're just gonna Google it together and figure it out. So, first things first, let's go to our source folder and create another folder called state. In this state, I wanna split things into 3 files. So in one file, we're gonna have our context related code. In another one, we're gonna have our state, because we do need to define the state, how it looks like. And that's the state that we are gonna be using later on in our application everywhere. So right now what we're gonna be doing is a lot of like getting the things set up, getting the things work with the app. So it might look a little bit dry in the sense that we're not, we're not kind of like hacking our way through React or something. But we're setting up the base for our application to work with useReducer, useContext, and basically have a state. And our state is going to be in our search page. So that's where we are going to focus on today. I don't think that we need that state somewhere else necessarily, but that's, again, that can change. For now, it's going to be for our search page, for all those filters to work together, and for kind of like also to offload the fetching from the API. So the idea is we go to the search page, we fetch once all the products, and then if the user goes and selects foundation, brand, sorting, and everything, then we're going to filter the products, and the user can keep on changing things, but we're not going to be fetching constantly every time, because that's just, I want to say useless API calls, but really unnecessary. That can be avoided. Also would be nice if we can keep the state once the user goes, let's say, to bottle lip and then comes back, then the state is still preserved, so the user doesn't need to click on all the filters in order to see all the products again. So that's kind of like, the idea behind it and why we need state in general. Because right now when we go to the other page, whatever we do here is forgotten, and we need to keep that. Right? Right. Are you self-taught dev? Well, partially, yeah. I did a lot of self-taught by myself. I guess that's that entails. But I've also went for a bootcamp later on, but then I dropped out because I have learned already by myself some things. So I would say that I'm like semi self-taught, semi bootcamp graduate. Hi Arun, what's up? Thank you for joining. Okay, so I was saying that we created our state folder. So I was saying that we're gonna have a file for the context, a file for the state, and a file for the reducer. So let's start by creating the state, right? Search state.js. So I prepended it with search because that's the different, so that kind of like, because it's going to be related only to the search functionality. You could also have one that is, for example, app state, where maybe you have a theme throughout the whole app that you want to preserve, and to keep the information about it. So it's again like flexible naming. Sorry, it's just that my brother is sending me updates about my family in Mariupol. Okay. I'll try to do my best to focus here, but you know, it's hard. So, search state. Let's start. Export, const, initial, search state. And it's going to be, of course, an object because that's what we need. So we know that we are going to have products, right? And they are going to be an array. So let's define them as an empty array in the first place. Take all the time you need. Family is important. Yep. I know. Thank you. Then we're gonna have filtered products, because this is where we are going to save whatever products are left once we filter them down through the whatever the user is selecting. And then I thought to have also a key called filters, where we can keep track of all the filters. So we don't keep track only of the products that are left, but we also need to keep track of the filters that were selected, because we need to also show them in the UI, right? So once the user goes to this bottle lip and then comes back, they probably want to see that they have selected the brand ColourPop, right? And not like the brand all. So it needs to really stay as same as possible before the user left the page somewhere else. Okay, so in filters we have brand, which is null. I'm not sure if we should do null or all, like if the default ones are gonna be there, but this we can change once we start working with it. We're gonna see. Then sort, spurt, null, product type, null. Product type is these things on the side. The foundation, blush, bronzer, eyebrow, eyeshadow, this thing. And then we have min price, null, and max price, null. And so why I'm doing nulls everywhere is probably because I don't use TypeScript, but also because I usually use null instead of like a number or a true or a false. I use null as an indication that nothing was changed in that variable, or like this variable since the initiation of it is still empty. You know, we have no information of how this filter in our case was used. And sometimes I also take that take that kind of information and pass it on to the UI. I'll probably, once I notice that, I'll point you in that direction to show you what I mean. You probably also know that. If you've done like some other challenges with me, like the API challenges, you probably have seen that. Especially in the very first one, the yes-no API challenge. I think I've used that there for the UI. Don't mind me, just a random virtual hug passing through. Thank you. So we have our initial search state, and that's how our state is gonna look like. what do we want to do next? We want to initiate our context. So let's create search context.js. Everything is going to be .js. We're not doing JS6 here. It's pure JavaScript files. Yeah. Although in some of them we are going to be having hooks, but it still is JavaScript. Or is it? Disregard what I just said. That might be not true. Okay, so import React from React, right? The very, very basic things. I'd love to do some of your API challenges with my students. What do you think? Ooh, sure. I would be happy to hear feedback. How is it going? I have like different levels there and different tech. So like the idea of the API challenges was to cover kind of like, okay, I didn't cover all the tech in the world, obviously, but to have kind of like a diversity when it comes to the tech selection, to the level, and to the ways of working with APIs. So I would be interested to hear which one you chose and how the students react to that. And if they have any suggestion, or if you have any suggestion, I can always come up with another API challenge, which I have already like 3 in my mind. I just want to wrap up welly so everybody can like breathe out and say, freaking yeah, we're finally done with this, Daniela. So that's why I'm focusing on welly a little bit now. What do you think is the most essential technologies? For example, React, PHP, SQL, Java, for an informational blog style website. Well, honestly, like the most basic one, it probably would be HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. You know? Oh, she's back! Yeah, Mohammed, hello! But back to the question about like essential technologies, I think that's the essential. HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. In a blog, I don't know if you want SEO. I would assume that probably yes. That's why many people also have a blog. And I guess for that you would need to be careful with React, because React is a single page application and it gives you only one page for SEO purposes. If you don't know what SEO is, it's search engine optimization, and it's basically, let me even show you. If you go to Elements and you go to the head tag, there are meta tags. There's description, for example, which we didn't change, so the default one is website created using Create React App. And if you have some other specific tags for Google to know that, hey, Google, can you rank me somewhere in your search? Then they're gonna start reading out this information. So in React, if we're gonna go to, for example, to home, you see this thing doesn't change. So if you have a blog, there is usually a desire to have different meta tags per page. So I wouldn't use React unless you're using server-side rendering. And that can be achieved with Next.js, for example, as a framework, or you can just like create your own server-side rendering by yourself with an Express and do it like that. But yeah, I don't think React is essential. Like I cannot put React as an essential tech. That's, I guess, my point. PHP can also be probably like a decision to use that. I have never used PHP, so I wouldn't say anything about it. Java, I think, is not in that direction. It's for backend. And SQL, I guess if you have a database where you read out the blog posts, then maybe it can be SQL. I don't know. Like Strapi has SQL, I think. But again, like if it's like the very, 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 very basic one and the super essential ones, I would even go with hard coding it myself, all the pages with HTML. You know, that's the level of essentialness? Essentialism? I think essentialism is something else, but you get my point. I last time learned React hooks from your video. Yay! Today we're still doing React hooks because there are tons of them, but it's the useReducer and useContext one. Which, if I'm gonna stop talking, I'll show you how to work with them. Okay, thanks. That really helps. Awesome. Cool. So we need to import create context. And we also need to import our initial search state. There we go. So now you can read about create context and what it is. I'm not gonna focus on that. It's kind of like, I don't think I get it 1000%, so I would not bring you on that journey of my uncertainty. But it basically really just creates like a context for us to use. And think of it kind of like it creates for us an area or like a field where we can do things. That's how I think of that. Hello from Japan. Hello, Japan. How are you? I have to go. Thanks for the help. Thank you for stopping by. Have a good day. Okay, let's search for another playlist because this one is short and it keeps on playing the same things again and again. Trending. As long as it doesn't have lyrics, we're okay with it. Okay, so let's create the context. Creating the context is extremely simple. We're just doing create context and you can write it search state. That's really all what it is. And of course you want to save it in a variable search state context equals this. Hello from Poland. Hello. What's up, Poland? What's up, Japan? I like seeing people from all over the world. How awesome is that? Okay. So once we have our search state context, we can, so it's kind of, I think I read that it's kind of a component if you really need to put terms into that, but I wouldn't be so entirely sure if that's like the definition of it. But you know, if that's what it is, then go with it. So const search provider equals, so that's gonna be a component for sure. It's not a component. It's kind of like a high order component, and you're gonna see why in just a second. So this search state context that we created on line 5, here it is. It provides us, I read that this is also a component, so really, basically you can do a dot provider on it, and that's what we need. Of course, don't forget to return, because that's how components work. And here we are going to render children. Or, you know what? Let me not confuse you with that first. So, before the children come, the provider thingy is somewhere where we can pass the value of our state. There we go. That's the music I didn't want. Let's go to relaxing. When I hear the word relaxing, I remember if you watched Friends, there is Phoebe and there is the Relaxy Taxi, Relaxy Cap. Anyway, So this provider is where we are going to give the value of our state to it, and just like roll with it. I'm gonna show you things soon that would start making sense. And this value is of course our initial search state. Also not of course, but it is right now. So how to use this search provider is by going, for example, to our pages, and in the search page, we need to wrap our application and kind of define the border where we want the state to be available to us. So for example, on this page, we don't really care if the header banner is going to have the state, which is this green thing. So I would suggest to wrap it here. And I think if I search, no, I didn't export it, right? Yeah, export default search provider. So now if we go here and we do search provider, it knows what to import. And here is how we wrapped it. So you see now we have the search provider and everything else is here. I don't know why it broke, but okay. Never mind, we're keeping on going. So since the search provider is here, it means that any component that is the child of the search provider, so what's inside of it, has access to whatever state the search provider has. So to the value, this initial state and later on the state that we're going to add, all of them are going to have access because they are the children of those components. And now I understand why things broke, so I told you that this is a higher high order component, which means that it has the ability to wrap itself. So imagine that it's a div, but what we're returning from here, we don't have anything here, right? So ideally we would have this, you copy this and you put it here so then you can render. But a high order component, the benefit of it is that you can just pass children to it and it will render whatever you put between it. So of course we need to pass it as props here. And if we save it now, you're gonna see that we're gonna have back all of our div stuff. Right? There we go. Hope that made sense. Long time no see. Yeah, I learned how to structure folder through Makeup Project. Yeah, thanks. It's 0:45 a.m. in Vietnam. I have to sleep. I will watch restream later. Good night. Sorry for your English is perfect. Thank you so much for stopping by and for letting me know. Have a good night. Okay, so that's the deal with the children. Now we can also go to our, oh no, I don't have my React DevTools here. Ugh. Okay, let me see what I can do about this. I'm gonna see if I can show you. So here you can see that this is our project, but this is like another browser profile that I have. And I have the React DevTools here, and it's called components. So if we go to the search page, you can see here that we have our search provider. And it has a context, and the value of it has all of our initial state, which is of course null, 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 null. Products is an empty array, also filter products, and so on. So you got it. Cool. So now that we know how it works or how it looks, we can go to the next step, which is reading out our value, kind of. So how would we read out the value? I told you that we have the create context, which is the context API from React, but we also have the hook of useContext. And useContext is used whenever we want to read out the information from our state, basically. So it would look something like that. You do like a const context or any other variable that you want to name it, and you say use context context. Okay, it gives me like some funky places, but basically the use context needs to be also imported from React. You can extend it where we had it with the create context, and you write use context, and you need to pass to it our search state context, this one. So the constant so the context that we have created prior to that is the one that we want the use context hook to kind of like use and then give us out whatever it can give us. And that's why it's important to pass this one here. And if we console log now context just to see what it is, it's probably going to be, yeah, it cannot be called here. Cool. This one would usually be called in a component, but why did I even start writing it here? It's because I personally don't like to have this type of code in every component. So, because it means that you would need to have these 2 lines in every component where you want to use the state. So, what's the solution? The solution is to wrap it in a hook. So we can create a const use search state. And again, you can name it as you want as long as it starts with use, because that indicates that it's a custom React hook and it allows you to use the use context inside of your custom hook. If it's not used, then it's just a regular function, and I think you're not going to be able to use the use context. And that's exactly the error that we have here, because we call the use context outside, just like in a JavaScript file, and that's a no-no. So you see React hook use context cannot be called at the top level, which means kind of like outside of everything. React hooks must be called in a React function component or a custom React hook function. Right? So that's what we did. We have our use search state, context, use context, blah, blah, blah. So, what? What are you drinking? It's a BCAA, you know that? It's like caffeine something to people usually drink it before a workout. It's a mild caffeine booster. Supposed to have some vitamins as well, but I just like the taste of it. And I've had it for over a year, so it's like it comes in powder, so I need to finish it, and that's why I feel like drinking some juice of some sort. This is like pineapple, so that's why the color. Wait, what did I do wrong? Is it because I'm not returning anything? Yeah. Okay. That was a guess. Use search state is assigned to value but never used. Yeah, so let's export. We're gonna have two exports. One of them is gonna be the named export and one of them is gonna be just a default one. Okay, it keeps on loading. I see a question here. Hey Daniela, small question because I want to start learning a JS framework. Would you recommend React as my first JS framework? I know you get this question a lot, but I did some Googling and can choose. So, I mean, if you enjoy React, if you see how it works and everything, and it's kind of like okay for you, then yeah, I don't think it's necessarily bad. But my personal preference is still Vue.js. I think Vue.js is very beginner friendly. It has better documentation. I think in general as a framework, it's just more humane. You know, it's kind of like, it's like writing a variable that makes sense to you. That's how Vue feels like. ReactJS started making sense to me later on, but that's also because I started learning React when there were still classes. But Vue.js, I think it's kind of like it has enough structure for you to not just like wander off, because in React you don't have that much structure, I think, at least not as much as in Vue.js. And it's a little bit more simple with Vue.js. They have a lot of explanation about, for example, lifecycle events of components, and the community is quite big. So I would even recommend to go with with Vue.js. But also on the other hand, if you're learning a JS framework just for yourself, like where you don't need to apply for jobs, then go with Vue.js, I think. Or at least give it a try and see how it works for you. I'm mainly focusing here on React because I know that's like the most demanded framework. So my main goal is to give you projects that are going to give you skills and hopefully make you land the job. So that's why I go with React usually. And plus at work I use React, so I feel like I'm at a stage that now I'm more familiar with React than with Vue.js. So only because of that. So it really depends also on your goal. I never heard of BCAA before. I thought it was a cocktail. I mean, you could call it a cocktail. It's gym cocktail. React is best because I only know React. Haha. Yeah. I mean, React is not bad. I just really feel that we don't know even like 40, like, I would say that we know 40% of it, you know, because there is just so many things and so much of everything, and even like the structure, it's always like I feel that I already have my structure and how I'm used to it, and at work we're also kind of like following somewhat the same one, but again, like it can be so different that it's, you know, I'm even thinking that sometimes maybe like the Vue.js type of folder structure, which again is not enforced by them, but there's like best practices. It might even work also in ReactJS in a way, but yeah, that's up to each project and each developer. Yes, you are right. Well, I don't know what I said, but I'm glad I'm right. So we were exporting our use search state, And if we're gonna go now to use that useSearch state, I actually first started, well, let me just bring you on the journey that I was going through yesterday by not paying attention too much. So let's say we want to use our useSearch state, which is just a function. So it's just our hook. So we're just calling it because that's our kind of like a hook wrapper. You could also add some error checks here, but we don't need it for now. That's as every developer says, we don't need to check for errors, right? What are errors? So yeah, we're having the context from useContext and then returning the context. So we could call it, let's say, const value. And we can console log the value. No p-value, just value. So at this point, our value is just search state because, would anybody guess why? I don't want to actually, I mean, there can be tons of reasons why, but if we put it somewhere else, it's gonna give us another value. And do you want to like pick a guess why? I have told you like some minutes ago, or like, how long have I been streaming? Like within this stream I have explained it, and I also didn't kind of get it when I first was writing it, so I kind of like dug myself a hole and stepped into that hole. So if you have any guesses. If you don't, that's also fine. 3, 2, 1. Okay. So the thing is that we are calling useSearch state hook, which is referring to useContext hook. It's the search state context, blah, blah, blah. So we're basically we want to use the state that is available to the children. And that's important because in this context, I wouldn't say context, on this level, this hook cannot read out the search provider value because it's not happening in any of the component that it's inside of this. So it's not happening in the children, which is what we have defined here, that the children can get the value. Okay, so if you're trying to use the search state or any other state from the provider within the same component where you have kind of like put the borders of your provider, it's not gonna work. So if we cut this out and we're gonna go to another component, for example, the sidebar, open the sidebar and then paste exactly the same thing. And of course, don't forget to import it. There we go. Then we are gonna have our proper state, which is value, products, filters, filtered product, and everything. So that's kind of like the explanation of the border of the provider, of the context provider, as well as how to use the hook when you want to read out the value. Yeah? So I'm gonna keep it here just for our sake, because we're gonna be using stuff like that. We're still not done, okay? Although I don't know why from this BCAA I'm getting even more sleepy. I think I've had like an overload of caffeine. Like yesterday I had 3 coffees. But at least I came up with a script, right? Okay. Now, useContext and Context API is all awesome, butterflies and everything, but what it doesn't do is that it doesn't necessarily by itself, it doesn't give us any state preservance or state at all. It has a value, and that's all what it has. So it's basically kind of, so this field that I was talking about, right? Let's say that it has a box. No, it doesn't even has a box. This field of the useContext, of the Context API thingy, this kind of like border that we created here in the search, this one, it has a value, but this value is kind of like up in the air. And you cannot do anything with that value except of reading it out. You cannot update it. Because you cannot update it, you cannot leave the page, come back and have it saved, what was there before. So useContext API and Context API and useContext are really not much without useState or useReducer. In our application, since you have seen our state, it's a quite complex state, and that's why we're not going to be using the hook called useState, but we are going to be using the hook called useReducer, which are essentially the same thing, but I would say that useReducer is a little bit more customizable, and it allows you kind of like to be more flexible with things. Because with useState, you have the state and set the state. So you get two functions, and your state can be as nested as you want. You still have only one function to update it. And that can get a little bit complicated. And I'll show you how with the useReducer you can eliminate this complexion, or maybe not eliminate the complexion, but at least make it a little bit more down to earth, readable, maintainable, and usable. So yeah, that's why we're gonna be using useReducer and not useState. I was reading yesterday a lot about useReducer and useState and how to better differentiate between the two, as kind of like a rule of thumb, which one should you use. So if you have a very simple thing in your app, for example, what can you use in your app as an example? Let's say you have a toggle, a switch of on and off. You're probably not gonna put it in a useReducer because you can just have a useState for it. You can have a toggle and set toggle, or toggle state and set toggle state. And that can just live within that component where you're creating it, or pass it even as a prop, and the set function as a callback to the children. And it can be like several levels, right? With what we want to do now, we have a sidebar, a top bar, product, and everything, and all of them need to be kind of like connected, but you also don't want to keep passing on and on, kind of like creating, you know, like this whole loops around them. You want those components to be able to call the state and update the state by themselves without being dependent on their parent components. And that's what I'm thinking of doing now. And that's basically kind of like the rule of thumb. If you have bigger kind of like components in a way that you know that there's going to be many different kind of like moving parts, then go for useReducer. But if it's something simple, then don't bother with useReducer and Context API and everything, just do a useState. Emma, say hello. Okay. I feel like I got my point across. You see, for example, with the set filter, we need to pass it to the sidebar and then to the top bar, and then that set filter need to go back to the use search and then update the filters, get back the products, blah, 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 blah. So it's better if we can not use that, right? Because this way, imagine if you need to pass like another function of set, I don't know, set price, for example. I mean, you will pass the set filter, but it's gonna be like set in the price. And the whole journey of the event, when the user clicks on setting the price, they set the price, they type whatever they want, or they select whatever they want. It goes up and up and up and up, and then down and down and down and down. And that's like a lot of things all the time, up and down, up and down. So I'm not sure if that's like, if that's nice. Imagine if you need to also, if you're working on a bigger application and you have several people working in your team or just on a repository, and everybody needs to touch code. So ideally, why like the whole benefit of components exist as well when it comes to developers working is that you have like this little tiny isolated component where you work and you do your stuff, and then your colleague can also do their stuff in their other component, and you're not gonna have merge conflicts and things like that. With set states and new states and all of that, if you're passing down all the time things, you never know how, you know, how complex it can get, and it can get complex quite fast. So in our case, it is a useReducer, and I would assume that any e-commerce website is going to be using not just the use state. Probably they're also going to be using Redux or MobX, I heard, or React Query, right? That's like the hottest new thing. But you know, we like it simple. We go with like the native things, because since React also offers it to us, why not? Good evening, Sad. Talented girl. Yeah. So let me know if you have any questions before we continue. And I don't know why I feel that I'm getting sick. Where does that come from? Why now? No questions so far. Okay. So let's go and create in the folder of state. We're going to create our reducer, which is search reducer.js. And we're gonna create like a simple reducer, so just, you know, it's just the syntax of reducers. I don't know what else to call it or define it. Search reducer. A search reducer accepts a state and an action. And then usually it has a switch statement. If you don't know what a switch statement is, it's kind of like what is that? An if statement, but a little bit more specific. So in the switch statement, we are passing action.type, and if that doesn't make sense for you right now, then just keep on going. It will make sense once we start using it. So the very first case that I'm gonna have is set product, and what it's gonna do is return state. We're spreading whatever state we already have in order not to override the state that is already there, and we're going to expect product in the payload, no, in the action dot payload. Yeah, I know. We also need to have a default case, and in case like nothing hits, so let's say I define set product and it doesn't exist, so in order for it not to error, I'm just gonna return state and not commit anything new. State. So what it does basically, whenever we're going to be calling the function that involves useReducer, we're going to be passing the state, or at least it's already passed the current state, and we're going to be passing mostly the action. So we're going to define the type, which is going to be, for example, set products, and we're going to define the payload or the data. And that's where the useReducer is a little bit more flexible, as I mentioned before, in comparison with useState, because we can define as many cases as we want, and we can do crazy things here. You know, we can do like products. We can maybe call here another function that is going to sort the products or something, and I don't know. The sky is the limit, you know? We can define as many cases as we want. They can be as different as we want. So yeah, that's kind of like the gist of the useReducer, which we still didn't use. So before we continue, I actually, if you see that we do action.type, action.payload, I prefer to already deconstruct it on the get-go and have a type and a payload here. Yes, I know it saves me just a couple of words, but I find it more descriptive. Okay, chat, let's see. Patrick is saying, hey Dana, are you also using Git in your everyday routine? Yes, of course. Definitely. When we need to use Redux and when to use Context API. Yeah, so that's like a good question. I think from what I've heard, the industry standard is using Redux on a very, very, very complex apps. Because from what I know, it gives you a lot of it has a lot of boilerplate code in terms of that it creates a lot of things for you. But then if your application is big, then you kind of have already a defined framework and you don't need to define the rules yourself. You don't need to define, you'll see later on, a thing called actions, or what else? Basically, it defines things for you and you're just like there to use them. Also consider that Context API is fairly new, so maybe it's not as common. Not maybe, it's for sure not as common as Redux yet, at least. So it really depends. But I personally really like using useReducer and useContext and Context API for my personal projects. But yeah, they are nowhere near to the complexity of big projects for businesses. So, but business-wise, I think many people are using Redux or React Query as well. Redux is easier to test. Context is not so quick as well, according to React docs. Could be. Yeah, so you see, it depends really on the scale of the project and of the thing that you're building and using. Because I think that, for example, using a Redux for this app probably can be like an overkill a little bit, right? Or which other app did we do? Like the weather app, the from the Ultimate API Challenge. I think that one is also really doesn't need a Redux. It's really enough just with useState. Okay, back to our search context. We need to import our use search reducer. How do you call it? Search reducer, it's not a use. This has been so much fun. I'm going to go relax a little because I was working on a presentation for a talk for 5 hours and I'm burnt out. Oof. Yeah. Good luck. You're amazing. Have a good week. Wednesday. I thought weekend. Thank you, Ahmed. I hope you can recover well and recuperate from that. And also good luck on your presentation. See you next time. Bye-bye. Okay, so we have imported our search reducer and now we're gonna see how we're using that search reducer. So within here, we are going to use a useReducer hook. Again, it's like doing a weird import for me. So you need to import it on the first line. And here we were. So useReducer, what it accepts? It accepts, there we see, an initializer argument and then an initializer. Is that what it is? What? Okay. Basically, it accepts the whole shebang that we created. Probably this is what they call the initializer. So it's basically our switch function. So let's pass it here, which is search reducer, as well as it accepts a state, and it's going to be our initial search state. Now, this hook also returns us. Similarly, as a useState returns us, it returns us a state and a setState function, but with reducers, they usually call dispatch. So now, this state and dispatch that we have, we need to again pass it to our search context provider. Because remember, this is kind of like the field where we're using things. So instead of the value being the initial search state, we need the value to be the state and the dispatch. And it's as simple as that. We do state and a dispatch. So now if we check in the sidebar, we have our console log of value. And my voice is breaking down. If we check, we have an array of two things. One of them is an object and another one is a function, which is what our state object and then dispatch function is. Now see, we have our state and the second thing is a function. I'm sorry. So now we can actually be more specific whenever we get something from our search state. Get our state and dispatch here as well. Right, so with the state, we are gonna get the state. And further, if we want to maybe get the products straight away, we can also deconstruct them here and have products. Yeah, there you go. See, how cool is that? Do you have a drink with ice? No, it's actually just like the straw that is hitting the glass, making that noise. Okay, so if you want to test it out, let's test it out. I'm gonna silently write code now for my throat to recover a little bit. So. Hey Cristobal, how are you? Okay. Wanted to update the state. Watch me do it. I'm gonna create a dummy button here. Okay, so basically what I did here, created a dummy button where we on click call the function update that we have defined above, and this function is using the dispatch. So this functionality that our context, use context, and the provider provides us with. And if we go to the search reducer, so first you see I have a type and product here, which is actually needs to be a payload. And where did that come from is in the search reducer. Remember, we have the type and the payload, which we're later on using here. The type, which let me probably put it here below so we can have it both on the same screen. So here it is, the dispatch, which is the function that basically calls this search reducer. What we're getting is a type called setProduct, and that's exactly here. the switch type, case set products. And we have our return. It spreads the state that already exists. Because if we would not spread the existing state that we have, we would just overwrite completely our state and it will just contain this thing. It will forget products, it will forget filtered products, filters, everything. So keep in mind that you need to keep the state there. So first you spread it, and then all the new changes, you add them at the end of your return statement. You also cannot do it first this and then the state at the end, because then the current state is going to override any changes that you want to be applied. So you're going to end up doing nothing, basically. Just a lot of code. So if everything is right and we save things and the stars align, then if we click on update, it should work. Look at that. We have our products, and products is A and B. Yay! And if we do a state, yay, state, and here we console log our state, then we should see that all of our state is still the same, except for the products that we changed. Cool, you see, we have our brand, sort, blah, blah, filter products, everything is the same, but the products were changed. And that's, you know, that's our success story for today. Well, no, but, you know. So all of this, how long have we been here? 1.5 hours of setup and a little bit of talking. All of that just in order to be able to call a function and to update the state. Welcome to the dev world, my friends. Hamid, hello! Damn, this is so beyond my current level in React. I've got so much to learn. No worries, because yeah, I have a ton to learn in React, honestly. Like, I'm just showing you the stuff that I explaining use context did take me like a brain work, because if you just follow along and just make things happen, it could work. But then like really understanding it in order to explain it to people, that's another level. So I have you to thank for making me dig deeper into that and understand that better. So I think it's a win-win for everybody here. Whoa, you're a super pro. Well, I know some stuff. I wouldn't say I'm a super pro, but I know some stuff. Okay. So we can remove this button. Because let's create it actually in a place where we need it. So once I push the code, you're still gonna have a reference to it, so you can kind of check in on it later on. So where would we go? If we want to update our products, we for sure need to go to the search, and our products are here. Close saved. What I'm thinking is that we also have our use search hook, and this one is kind of left out because right now we're using it in the search where we still cannot use the use state search here because it's not within the child. So I'm thinking that we actually need to put, what did I do? No, I'm thinking that we need to put all of this in a component, like a separate one, where we will be able to use the use search as well as the state of, I just scratched myself, where we can use the use search as well as the state of the search, because then that would make more sense. And maybe we could even use everything within the hook and not even inside of the components. Hey Brenda, happy to see you here. Glad you made it. Hey Ivan, hello from Brazil. Hello from Germany. Well, Berlin. Berlin is very different than the whole Germany. Dana, are you more busy at work with CSS or with JS React? I'm more busy with meetings. my really sad reality. Today I had meetings all the day. Like from 9 o'clock in the morning until 2. Yeah, and I start working quite early, like 8-ish. So it's 6 hours of my working time is like, you know, just meetings. And I'm not even a manager, so. But in general, I would say that probably JS. If I get to work on code, then it's most of the time it's JavaScript, because in my role, not in my role, in my department, we're doing a lot of features with A/B testing and everything. And yeah, you do some CSS here and there, of course, but it's a big company and it has already an established design framework, buttons, components, and everything. So most of the things that you add is some business logic and not necessarily like new CSS stuff. Sometimes when I create new pages, then I do CSS, but then again, it's still limited. It's not gonna be anything like, I don't know, some animations or something, because, you know, it's still a business. We don't do that there. Not in that business. Yes, I am late, but I'm happy I can catch some of your live. Yes, I'm very happy that you're here. How is the coding going? We set a good base for our state and everything. We did the context reducer and the state. So pretty happy with the progress that we did. 1.5 hours, it was not only me talking. We did a progress. What is different between utils and assets folder? What do we put in these folders? So assets is usually images, maybe fonts sometimes, and utils, it can be like a helper function. For example, format data or format date, or sort something, you know. Utils can also sometimes be named as helpers folder. You also don't have to have those folders. It's just kind of like a choice of how to separate your stuff. I don't even think we have anything in utils here, you see? Our utils is empty. It's empty because I played around with the code and then I deleted the files, but I didn't delete the folder. So I'm gonna delete the folder because it's empty. And I don't think I have assets, right? Yeah, I don't have assets. I have components, constant data hooks, pages, and state, the new folder. Do you use Google Fonts links or better not to? I do. I know that there is some scandal recently, right? That eventually Google Fonts even were tracking something. I don't know if they have fixed that or not. But you could also download the Google font if you don't want to use it through the link. But yeah. I mean, most of the websites where I do use Google font, I have tracking anyhow, so I need to like ask the consent and everything. But also it's like, so I didn't read much about it, so I don't know what's the gist of the scandal that was there, or like the whole situation. But like, we're being tracked everywhere. The thing about tracking is if you're being tracked as an individual. So if they're allowed to kind of like connect the dots that it's you. And this I don't think that Google is allowed to do without explicit consent. At least not in the territory of the European Union. I don't know about like other places. I know even in Instagram that, you know, like when you have like insights about your post or story or whatever, there is always the likes, comments, shares, and saves. So as a person who lives in the European Union, I don't have access to the shares because it's like not confidential. It's basically a thing that Europeans, citizens within the European Union, our data cannot be like showed in that way. But what I do wonder is that if, for example, US people living in the US can't see that data that was, for example, if I share their story or post, if they can still see that. Or if it's just for me, kind of like to, smoke screen, you know, you cannot see it, that's it. Pretty sure they're still tracking it. Same here, I cannot see them, yeah. So it is not a problem that links may break from time to time. I mean, for Google Fonts, I think there would need to be something very, very, very huge in the update in order for the link to break. That has never even crossed my mind that a Google link to a font could break. And if it does break, you still always have like a fallback to which font to display. So it's not like your website is not going to have a font at all. There is like an equivalent or something that looks as similar as possible to the style of that font. So your users are still going to have a font and they're still going to see all the text, but just not like in the style that you wanted, which is, I guess, like the most important part, right? That the information is still there and you can still use the website. It's time for another refill. Okay. All right. So let's create this component that I was thinking to create, right? Hello, hello. Hey, Sasha. How are you? Okay, let's create, I would also call it search, like, why make it more complicated? Absolutely no need. So search.js6. Oh, was it RCC? Yeah. Search. And then there we go. We need all of that. Right, and here we can just do search, but of course it's not gonna work because we have this search. Let's do this, is gonna be the search page. Yeah, search is not fine, that's fine. Here, search. And it's still not defined because we didn't import export it. There we go. Set filter and products is not defined because we get it from our hook. So let's cut this thing out. And also here. So for now I'm just copy pasting it, but we said that we're gonna change it, so just to make things work first, you know. Okay, hooks a little bit higher. Why are the products duplicated? Like this. And there we go. We don't have an index. The things I find today. Product. Okay. And then it probably needs to be, yeah, like this. What it cannot find? Why does it complain? Briefly complain and then removed, you know? What? Set filter is not defined. What you talking about? Okay, we have a lot of search going on here. But if you follow like the step by step, then it should make sense. Okay, let's see that everything still works. Okay. So we did that in order to move so we moved all of the children that the search provider had in order to be able to use on the same level the use search hook and the use search state hook, custom hook. What I'm thinking now is, what do we want to do about it? So we have the products here which we are getting from the use search, and then we're passing them. But ideally we would just call the hook here without even getting anything out of the hook. Okay, maybe we are gonna get like the set filter. That can be there, that's fine. Or maybe not even. Anyway, what I'm thinking is that the products within this hook, they need to be set to the state. So then when we go to the products component in here, we get them from the state. We don't get them as a prop. So let's do that. Let's call here our use search state, and we're going to do const products, right? Because our state comes on the first position, so 0 position, and we deconstructed already straight away. So right now it's gonna be just an empty array, which is gonna keep on loading because we have here, if the length is 0, then it keeps on loading. As you create the product tiles, You prefer to use image tag or background with image? I think it's an image tag. I don't like a background image should be like a very specific use case. I use the image thing. I prefer that. How do you decide where to manage the state? Sometimes I find myself moving my state a lot, especially when an app grows. Yeah, I find myself doing that as well. And I think that's kind of like part of the deal, right? Because like now, probably like next stream I would want to move it again. Now, from what we see here and the use case that we have, it makes sense to put it in one place. And then again, as the app grows, things can move. Unless you already have like a super specific definition and acceptance criteria, what your app is gonna do, what it's gonna look like, and it's not an MVP, then maybe then you can kind of like already be more certain where to put the state. But that can also kind of be like premature optimization, right? So maybe it's not. I don't know if that's good, but I'm with you on that one. Like just like moving the state, the more kind of like use cases you get for it, the closer you, not the closer, basically the more you refine its position and where to call what and how to use it. Because also maybe there is some new features that require the same state somewhere, so it might move up, especially if you're not using like a context or Redux, and it's just the use state, right, that passes props. So yeah, I don't know if that's normal, but that's also how I do it. The higher up. Yeah. So, for example, here with the search, right? The top position of that search context thingy is within the search page. So we know that all the, or at least I assume, that everything that is within the state that we have created, which is this one, products, filter products, and the filters, we're gonna put it, we're gonna use it only on the search component itself, which is the one that we created here. Where is it? Here, this one. So only within this scope, we're gonna be using it. And that's why I put it up there. We could have already also made it like an app state and put it, I don't know, in our app.js, for example, here. That could also be a thing. And I think in this case, probably something that would go to an app state would be like a theme, or maybe a user information that you need throughout the whole app and not on a specific route. Usually I put it higher in a parent component if it needs to be pushed down to other child components. Haha. Yeah, but that's exactly the case, right? It needs to, I think I even read it in their beta docs, that the state, so like you need to find the first parent that the two components have in common, and that's where the use state is gonna live. Which makes sense, right? Because it's like one direction of like data flow and stuff. And then you have like the set, the callbacks, basically calling back the parent and saying like, hey, we need an update. So yeah, I do the same. The best is to keep it simple, for example with use state, but sometimes you can't when the info must be accessible everywhere. Yeah, so for example, let's say you do have a theme here, but you need to pass it like super nested, then you would probably don't want to have like this tail of like trailing prop that needs to be passed everywhere, right? You want to read it out only in a specific component where you need it. But if it's like a local state kind of, you know, like within the component or within like several relationships of the component, definitely go with useState. Like, look how much we had to write in order to have it. And that's just like the beginning, right? That's just like the base of the base. This is not even, let's remove the console log. That's not even, that's nothing basically. It's just the base. So unless you really need that, I don't think anybody will want to go through that. That it kind of eliminates the work by itself, you know? You just see the amount of code you need to write for it and you start wondering like, is that really needed? Abhishek, it's about 1 AM, I should go to sleep. Yes, for sure. Have a good night and thank you for joining. Okay, what were we doing? We were talking about products. So we have the products here and we want, you can close the context, so we can close, well, let's keep that one. State, we can also close. Pages, we can close. App, we can close. Product state, index, and new search. So in here, sorry, my voice is giving up. As soon as it's like 1 hour and a half into the stream, like a clock. But it's almost 2 hours now, so let's get the products first. So we have here our use state, which we don't need anymore. Yay! Now it's gonna break everything, so I'm not gonna save it. Don't save it. Or in order not to traumatize anybody, let's just keep it, but also use our other thing. So where do we set the products? We set the products here. And the set product is basically going to be swapped by our dispatch. So we do const state and dispatch equal use state search state. There we go. Waiting for you to finish talking. Good night and thank you for your tutorials. My pleasure. Thank you for joining. Okay, so how do we swap the dispatch, the set products with the dispatch? So it's, I'm just like trying not to jump in advance and just like do it step by step. Okay, again, keeping what we already have and just replace it. It's going to be a dispatch that accepts, I need to enable the on type linting. So type is going to be set product. And again, if you just joined and you don't know where set products come from, we have it in the search reducer. It's the type. So we have a type and a payload. Those are the two things that we are passing from every dispatch that we're calling. And the type is set products because we want to update our product. So type is set product and payload is going to be an empty array. if we save that, well, honestly, we're not returning products anywhere anymore. So we can just leave it out. And it's still gonna be loading because we never set the products to be something yet. They're all here. So we can really copy the same dispatch function where that was a bad idea. Just paste it here, save it, and the payload is gonna be data. So exactly like we have it here. And now if we comment that, we should see something. There we go. It took a moment. Okay. I was starting to suspect what's happening there. Cool. But as you can see, this is repetitive and this is slightly repetitive, right? It's kind of like doing sort of the same thing. So what we can do, where is it? There is such a thing called action creators. There is action types and action creators. So action types are these things. So if you were to type everywhere a string called set products, there is a higher chance there is going to be a spelling mistake somewhere, and at some point the app is just gonna break, not work, and not do things as expected, and you would not even know why, because troubleshooting string is really not a good idea. So what we can do is we can create, not in the hooks, but in the state. I don't know if it should be in the state, it can be probably somewhere else, but since it's all related to that, let's just do it here. We're gonna call it action creators as well as action types. So, action types, let's start with that one. They're gonna be every time you're creating here a case, which is our type, you're gonna add an action type. So copy this and we can call it export const set product equals set product. Usually capital case. I think this naming convention or like casing convention comes from Redux, but I'm not sure, as I've seen Redux only like for 10 minutes through my whole career, so don't quote me on that, but it kind of like sets the tone that it's a variable, it's a constant, and usually it comes from somewhere else, at least in my projects. So we can go then to the search reducer and we can import that. Import set products from blah 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 action types, and now the case can also be this set product. So this way, if you have set product, it kind of should error because it's not gonna know where that comes from, right? Could not find name set product. So it's gonna be like, oh, you did something wrong. But on the other hand, if in our use search you do set product, it'll be like, okay, mate, no problem. I'm gonna continue doing nothing for you. And here we are going to also import set product, and our type is gonna be set product, and in both places it's gonna be set product. So while we have created the action types, we can also create action creators. What are action creators is basically this thing. So anything that is kind of repetitive for us, we can just, like our set products here. Wow, my voice is really like the set products here, we can also create the same wrapper kind of like for the dispatch. So let's go to our action creators, and we're gonna create an export const set products. And what it's gonna do is gonna just return an object. We're basically wrapping the object that we have in our use search. So the type and the payload. So type is gonna be set product. Lovely VS Code already imported for us because I spent the time on it. And the payload is going to be, we can do product, right? Which here is just gonna be an argument, and we can name it as we please. So set products can now be used in here. So if we do set product, did it import? No, it didn't. Okay, let's do import set product. There we go. Now it's imported. You see, like this is an action type and this is a function. And where were we? Here, set product. And the only thing we need to pass is the product, which is for us the data. So for you, for, I don't want to say the user because the user doesn't see that, but for kind of like a user developer, this set products or this set products that is coming to us from the action creators, which is this thing, has no difference, right? So like under the hood, it's a little bit different, but in reality, it still does the same. It sets your products. And the beauty in that is that you can really just, here the payload is an empty array. So we're gonna do set products, empty array. Exactly, again, the same as we had it with the set state. How beautiful is that? But I think I'm missing something, right? I'm missing the dispatch because you cannot just do just that. You need to dispatch something. And because we had a dispatch here and now the only thing that we did with the action creators is just wrapping the object that is being returned. But that object still needs to be dispatched from our dispatch, right? So I have just jumped ahead and forgot about it. So like this, dispatch, and here also dispatch. So it's a little bit different, but it's just adding another word, right? Hello, good evening. Some people say that it is not elegant to use dispatch everywhere and it is better to wrap it in functions, action creators. Yeah, so that's kind of like what we did here. I think it's fine if you have a function once in X amount of files or something like that. Basically, it's again the same rule of thumb. If you see that it's being repetitive all over the place, then just create a function for it. Just like isolate it a little bit more and make it less prone for bugs, because that's basically what we're eliminating here. We have like a dedicated function that is called set products, where we know that whatever we're passing to it is gonna send the payload and the type as set products. You know, so we're kind of like, okay, we already did an extra mile here, like, is it an extra mile? An extra step that we define set products as a variable, so then we don't, you know, play with the strings. But then we can also go further and do the set products function, kind of like a wrapper for the dispatch to take on. The more complex things get, the more you can add things. For example, here you can even have like a conditional or before the return, because essentially what this syntax is just returning an object. We just didn't write return. So let me just show you. You can also do it like this, return this, and it's going to be the same. So here you can do, for example, product, then product, else, an empty array, right? There are better ways to do that, but just as a thing, you can already check what you want. Instead of doing that in every place where you are setting the products only by using this. So you kind of like have like a dedicated space where you can do all of that. And again, it's not a necessity. It's, if you find it useful, then use it. If not, then don't. Like sometimes if you are using, like, again, if it's like, let's say it's again the case where you need to set a theme. Is it really necessary for you to go through all this hassle and where you have like only in one place where you can toggle the theme? Absolutely not. Like, why would you go with that? Maybe for learning, maybe for just like experimenting, sure. But as like an argument that this is better for that case, for that scenario, I would argue that. Like, I think the fastest you get to the solution and without like over-engineering it, probably the best. Also like less maintenance in a way. But that again, that was only for the theme kind of like topic, right? Because I was just doing all of this to help the maintenance of the code. Okay, so we have our set products. Gonna close the sidebar. What else? So we don't need the products from here anymore. That's kind of the beauty, you see, like now our products, they just exist by themselves. And if we feel like putting the products somewhere completely different, we can just do that because they already have their own functionality. Like they are their own, I want to say component, but everything is a component. They're kind of like their own little entity that is able to survive on its own, right? The only thing you would need to change is probably the import paths, but even then, that's not necessarily the thing. Greetings from Cape Town. Well, hello. I'll be revisiting your videos. Great work. Keep it up. Thanks a lot. So we have the products. What else do we want to do? So the state here, we're not reading it out, but I know some people sometimes do like an underscore and then, but we're not gonna do that because we are most likely going to use it somewhere else. Okay, what about set filter? So we have, okay, so for now the set filter is actually fetching us the data, but we also need okay, so setting filters has kind of like two ways of things. One of them is communicating with the API, and another one is keeping the state for the UI. So if we go, so if we change the brand this needs to be reflected in our filter search state here. So the brand should be something else. But then once we go back, so once that happens, we also need to update the filtered products. And then when we go out from the page and then back to the page, it still needs to be the same. Which should be okay. So my concern was that we would need to fetch the data again per the filters, but we have the filter product, so we don't need to do that. Okay, so let's put it to do in our use search in here. To do, extend this function with setting the filter in the state. Another to do, save filtered product to the state. So this way, once the user comes back to the page, they have the filtered products and they don't need to refetch everything again. Right? So did we fetch everything? No. I think they give us like 100 per page, right? Okay. What else do we have here? When the user navigates to the product and then goes back, please look, yeah. Search should have a separate drop down. Okay, create the tags. Okay, so those are the things that are like UI, and this is the functionality. Okay, so let's remove the products from here and set filter. It's probably still gonna go to those ones because, does it though? Maybe not even. Maybe in the sidebar, so in here, we could also have the dispatch happen. And then once the dispatch happens, the state updates. And here we can have a use effect, kind of like this, but listening to filters update. And then whenever the filters are updated, then we need to update the product. That's the beauty of hooks. You can do everything with this kind of things and you don't really need to take care of this whole, you know, sending events and everything. Awesome. So look at that. We did a massive thing today with the state, reducer, and the context, as well as created action types and action creators. We're gonna extend all of that in the next streams, but I'm really happy that we finally got the base of these things down, because that was like a heavy lifting on its own. As always, since my voice is already giving up on me and it's kind of like getting late, I'm gonna wrap the stream here and we're gonna meet hopefully next Wednesday or maybe even Monday or Tuesday. I don't know. Let me know which day works for you additionally to Wednesday, and I'll see how it works with my schedule. Although, wait a second. Next Wednesday? No. Next Wednesday, I cannot, because you know why? I have my citizenship test. So I cannot do it next Wednesday. So I'm probably gonna do a Tuesday or maybe a Thursday. Probably a Thursday, because on Tuesday I'm gonna be preparing for the citizenship test. So hold your fingers for me. I need all the luck for my citizenship test. And yeah, let's do next Thursday. Okay? And thank you for joining. This stream was so enjoyable and interesting. Thank you so much. Thank you very, 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 very much. That's really kind of you. You made my evening. Likewise. Thanks, Dana. Have a good evening. Thank you, Brenda. I hope you enjoyed it, and even for the little bit that you joined. Yay! Thank you. I hope I got this. Citizenship test. Yes. Okay. Let's hope that next time we meet on Thursday, I'm gonna have good news. Although I don't know how fast they give you the results, but let's at least I'm gonna have like a vibe about it. So I'm gonna push it to GitHub. So in case you wanna do it by yourself or review it again, it's gonna be available in the code along. The link to the GitHub repo is in the description box below. And I'm gonna wish you a good day, evening, night, wherever you are. Stay safe and see you next Thursday. Bye!